And let's just check. Okay, it is recording. Okay, so let's start with tonight's session, and I will admit as more students join. So let's quickly see. Let's just quickly show if you can see the presentation, just let me know.
Yep.
Okay, cool. Okay, great. So let's start with session 2. Basically, tonight we're going to look at the descriptive stats, basically looking at visualization. And most of tonight's work will be around stem and leaf. So we can definitely focus on that. And you will also see then I also will look at some questions that has been in previous papers, and then also a frequency table that has been in previous papers as well. Okay, so basically when we look at the stem and leaf, you will see that again, like we said last in session 1. So stem and leaf is normally part of chapter 2, but what will happen is that you will also now start combining chapter 2 and chapter 3, because they will ask you questions around the median that is more in chapter 3. You'll see we'll start talking about when we look later on. Let me quickly see in this one. So the things that we will look at here is also concepts about chapter 3, so mode, range, median. So again, you can see they're combining some of the chapters. So again, in the exam, when they say you can get 2 questions on a chapter, just be reminded that it can be then that this is nearly a question on chapter 2. So just to see the combination nearly of questions that is possible. Okay, so let's look at this, and before we even start looking at the questions nearly, I want to let us look at a few things. So the minimum value is 50, the maximum value is 92. They don't tell us how big the sample is. So what I normally would do is just count it. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we know that N is 7. Okay, and then we can start looking at what's in the questions. So first question, and then also what we now have seen as nearly standard, asking the incorrect one. So let's look. Which of the following statement is incorrect? Sample size is 7. Okay, so we know the sample size is 7. So option 1 is correct. Then we look at approximately most of the candidates had distinction. So let's leave that one for later. The median The median is 76. Okay, so for median, we will get the median is the middle value. So if we look at where the middle value is, if n is 7, the middle value is sitting nearly in the half of a 2. So there will be 3 to that side of the middle value, 3 to the other side of the middle value. So your 6, basically then 76 will be your middle value. So the median is 76 is correct. So let's then look at the fifth exam score is 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So what is your fifth exam score? Anyone that want to?
81.
Cool, 81. So it is not 1, it is 81. So that one is wrong. Then if I needed to order it, it would have been 50, 74, 74, 76, 81, 89, 92. So that is also correct. So let's look at approximately most of the candidates had distinctions. Okay, so let me just erase that first. So when they say approximately most have distinctions, and then remember distinction is 75 or more. So when you get 75 or more, so we're basically looking at those values. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So 4 have distinctions, 3 have not. So most of your candidates had distinctions. Okay, so that is also correct. Okay, so basically we look at the stem and leaf to look at that option 2 to basically see if we can get to the answer or not. Okay, so there's no nearly formula for that. We need to look at the information at hand. Okay, happy with the first one? Questions about the first one? We will do a few more. So I think there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more. So as we go through it, we will hopefully get different questions out of this as well. Okay, so let's quickly. No, the screen is not supposed to be black. Is anybody else seeing a black screen, or are you seeing the next question in question 2?
Question 2.
Okay. I think there's probably some connection error happening that you're seeing a black screen. But this is recorded again, so I'll share the link after later tonight as well on this session. Okay, so when we look at the second question, this is asked a bit differently. So here they ask us to look at the number set, and then they ask us, but what are the possible stem and leaves for this. So what for me is always how you need to look at it. So before you even in the exam nearly work out certain things, let's look at these options. And within these options, let's see if there's anything that we can nearly already cancel out. So when we do a stem and leaf, it needs to follow a pattern. So it needs to be, if 11 is the smallest and 32 or something is the biggest, it needs to follow a pattern. So it needs to be 1, 2, 3. So this one at the moment is an option with a 1, 2, 3. You can't have a stem and leaf that says 1, 3, 2. So option 2 is not an option at all. So when you look at 1, 2, 3, okay, that might be the answer as well. 1, 3, 2 can't be. Yes, nothing. So we basically, then this is not a stem and leaf. So it can also not be. So if you're in the exam, you basically need, and if you didn't even know what to do next, you have now 2 to guess from, and because you eliminated 3 already. So then the next thing, I would look into the leaves, always from smallest to biggest. So 137, that seems correct. 8482, okay, you can't have that. So it should have been 2488. Can't have 32, it should have been 23. So already we could have eliminated 4 of the answers. So even without looking at that info, we could have said 3 is the option, because the other 4 options actually just can't happen. But let's actually look at the numbers. So there's 11, there's 11. Next one in the tens is 13, there's 13, 17, there's 17. So in the 20s, we go smallest 22, so it's there. Then it is 24, it's there. 28 and 28, so both of them are there. And then 32 and 33. Okay, so option 3 is the correct one. But nearly without even needed to look at the data, the other 4 options just could not have been an option. So you will see during all of the sessions, I would nearly give you some tips on certain things in the exam as well. Just that if specifically also with the time pressures in the exam, that if it's easier to spot some of the things that just will make it easier for you, I'll show that as well. Okay, happy with this one. So wasn't difficult, but it was trying to catch you out on certain things, because if you look at option 5, it actually had the numbers from smallest to biggest, but obviously it needed to have the 1, 2, 3, but else it had the right sequence of numbers. So just remember that as well. When we're doing stem and leaf, there must be a stem, and then there must be a leaf component as well. Okay, so there must be something. Okay, let's go to the next question. So again, they ask us to to look at this data set. So they ask us to look at this data set and then basically arrange it. So where they gave us the data set here and we needed to do a stem and leave. Yes, Warren.
My answer would be number 3, Jan.
This one. Or question 3.
Question 3. Question 3.
Yes.
Yeah, my answer would be number 3. It's 20, 22, 22, 27, 31, 31, 33, 35, and 39.
Perfect. Okay, so perfect. It will be that number. The catch in this one is that here they tell you two-digit integer. So two-digit integer means that your first smallest number is 20. If they told us one digit, then it would have been 2.0. And then it would have been option 2. So just be again careful how they phrase it, because for this one, because they say two-digit, it must be option 3. So the difference between option 3 and option 4 is that in option 4 they basically took out the second 31. So that's the only difference, but that is wrong. Then what they did in option 1 is they only took the 0, the 2, so they just gave all of those numbers, so that is why that one is wrong. If it was a one-digit integer, then option 2 would have been correct, but it's not. So your smallest is 20 and not 2. What did I do? Yeah. Okay. Okay, I don't know what they did with to get to option 5, but that is also definitely wrong. Okay, so again, nearly simple enough to get to the answer, but just be very careful again in what they are asking, because you will see in slides 7 and 8, I'm showing some of their previous exam papers, and there they ask this, give you the same data, but they ask the question differently. Okay, so let's go into another stem and leave. So here they ask us to, the ages of sample of 40 workers are shown below. Which of the following statements is incorrect?
Would you please go back to question 5?
Yes. Perfect.
Between number 1 and number 2, when they say single digit, are we looking at getting the 2-digit and placing just a comma on it, or we are following the last numbers or the first numbers?
Just a comma.
Just a comma on it.
Yes, because then what will happen is this represents 2 point and 3 point. So then it will be 2.0, 2.2, 2.2, 2.7.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Thanks.
Cool. And I think that is important, because I have seen in one exam that they showed this and said it is a one digit. Just that one needs to remember that. Okay. So let's look at this one. So let's just look at what they are asking. Yes, Warren. Or is that old dad?
No, it's, I think number 2 is incorrect, Jan.
Okay, so let's quickly check. So you say number 2, so let's look at it. But let me quickly go through all of them and then we can see. So again, what I normally do, I look what's the smallest, what's the biggest. Then let's look, there was a question. The smallest is 25, so that one is correct. Mode, range, medium, so they don't ask the biggest, but they do ask us the range. So let's see, the range is 61 minus 25. So the range is 36. Okay, so let's look at, sure, there's 40. So to get to your middle number, it's 40 plus 1 divided by 2, which is, what is that, 20.5. Okay, so let's look where, so that is supposed to be the median. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. So between 20 and 21 will be your middle number. Your median is then 38. So if it was, let's look at the mode first. So mode is the number that appears the most. So let's look at this 226, 228, 333, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 240s, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so there's 4 41s, 346s, so 41 is the most. Okay, so option 2 is the wrong one. And also, why is option 2 again wrong? So if you look at, so because the mean is at 58, to this side of 58 lies 50% of the values, because that's the middle. To that side lies 50%. So most ages in the sample are greater than 40. So no, it should be most ages in the sample are 58 and more. So 40 is still part of that last component. So that is also why option 4 or option 2 is wrong. So I nearly worked it now backwards to say, let's look at all the other options and eliminate it to get to that one. But also, if you look at where the bulk of your data is sitting, it is not sitting above 40. So the bulk of your data is sitting above 58, or even if you go back to that one, 58. So if that was 58, then it would have been fine, but it is not. So option 2 is the wrong one. Okay. Question on this one, happiness. Does it make a bit more sense as we're going through it? Cool.
It is making more sense. Thanks so much.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so let's look at two two slides with exam examples. And this is fascinating for me because it was exactly the same data. In the one exam, they ask which one of the following statements is incorrect, which one is incorrect, and you can see the range is 50, the range is 50. The fifth largest value is 50, the fifth smallest value is 50. There are 53 numbers. There are 53 numbers. The mode is 70, the mode is 70, the median is 64, the median is 4. Okay, so obviously there's a few that has changed and others that haven't. And they like to do that in their exams, and also now that you guys are writing online, and there is nearly a set of different questions that you can write, it is very easy for them just to nearly mix this up. Still give you the same question, but nearly scramble the answers into different answer sets. Okay, so let's both asking incorrect. So if I look at these numbers, the stem and leaf diagram for the days to maturity data is shown below. Okay, so that already tells me that we are working with 2-digit because you won't have a 3.6 days. You will have 36 days or 38 days or 39. So let's look at the biggest number is 86. The smallest number is 36. So 86 minus 36 is 50. Okay, so we know that the range is correct. The fifth largest value is 50, largest. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the fifth largest value is actually 80. Okay, so that one would have been the wrong information in the October-November exam. The fifth smallest value is 50. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so the fifth smallest is 50. Okay, there needs to be 53, but let's just check. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, so there is 53 numbers. So that is correct. The mode of 70. Okay, so let's look. There's two numbers. There's two numbers. Okay, 3 numbers. Okay, so mode is 70 is also correct. Because there is 53 numbers, your middle value will be basically 32 plus 1 divided by 2, so 17. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 17. Okay, so 64 is your median and not 4, because it's easy to make a mistake to look at that and say it is 4. So it is definitely not 4. Okay, so nearly looking at the same data, scrambling the options a bit, changing the answers a bit, you get 2 different outcomes, where in the October-November option 2 would have been wrong, and the May-June exam paper option 5 would have been wrong. Okay, so nearly what they can ask you on STEM and leave is about the minimum, about the maximum, about the range, they can ask you most of the values are above something, most of the values are below something. They can ask you the sample size, and then normally they can ask you the mode and the median. So let's quickly see what else was in their mode, medium. They ask a number that was, again, smallest, most, mode, range, media. Okay. If I ask you to work out the average, which hopefully they don't on a stem and leaf because it's just a lot of work, they will probably ask you it on a smaller set of data, where you then say 50 plus 74 plus 74 plus 76 plus 81 plus 89 plus 92 divided by 7 to give you the average. They won't ask you on a set of 40 numbers or a set of 33 numbers to work out the mean or the average. That is just, they won't ask you on this huge number set. Also not when we get to chapter 3 with standard deviation and variance and all those kind of, again, they won't ask you to work that out on this huge number set. If they ask you to work that out, it will be on 5, 6, or 7 sample size. Definitely not on a 33 or a 40. So again, I think you don't need to worry if you have this big data set that they will ask you to work out standard deviation and mean. Okay, so what they've also started doing quite a lot in the last 2 online exams is to ask you frequency distribution tables. So they can ask you on what is the frequency, they can ask you what is the relative frequency. Sometimes they can say what is the cumulative frequency, so depending on the question. So in this paper, again in October, they ask what is the relative frequency of the ANC from that table, and in the June one, they ask you for the DA. So basically looking at the same information, they just ask you 2 different questions. So how would you work out relative frequency?
The way you would work out your test result, like out of a total.
Okay, so it would be, say, if it was ANC, it would be 160 divided by 500. If it was DA, it would be 246 divided by 500. And if it was EFF, it would have been 95 divided by 500. Okay, so for this instance, then it would be 160 divided by 500. And in this instance, it would be 246 divided by 500. Okay, so what I would do also, and I've showed it in my notes as well. So when it's relative frequency, it must be a decimal. So you can nearly eliminate those 3 answers. The same on this side, you can nearly eliminate that. If it was only frequency, then it is the number. Okay, but relative frequency, you need to work out what is nearly the fraction, and it will be given in a decimal form. Okay, so Then what you do is the 160 divided by the total. So 160 divided by 500 will give us the 0.32, and then the 246 divided by the 500 will hopefully give us the 0.0429. So let me also just make 100% sure.
Zero 0492.
Okay. Cool. Okay. So, and again, how close those two are. And again, in the exam, it is very easy when you are pressured to look at your calculator and see a 492. Here you see a 492 and you think it is also the same. So in the exam, again, just be very careful in the options that you just read it correctly. Okay, we've got another question.
Hi, Jean. Sorry to disturb.
No problem.
A quick, simple definition of relative frequency, please. I haven't worked with this before.
Okay, so a quick definition of relative frequency. So, and let's. I want to nearly give you another example. So say, let's quickly say it is. And I'll tell you now what the brackets also mean. So let's say that was 9, that is 14, that is 7. Let's just make some space here as well. Okay, so say that was the frequency. So just quick on what this means. So it means that we're going from 0 to as close as possible to 10. Then we're going from 10 to as close as possible to 20. So 19.9999 will fall into this one. And when it is from 20 to as close as possible as 50. Okay, so that's just what the closed bracket and an open bracket means. So the frequency says to me there's 9 out of, okay, so it's actually 50. Huh. Good, I like working with round numbers. So the frequency tells me there's 9 values that are between 0 and the 10. There's 14 in that category, there's 7 in that category. Relative frequency tells me just basically what is the percentage of each. So relative frequency is what is the percentage or what is the decimal out of the 30. So 9 out of the 30 is in that bracket. 14 out of the 30 is in this bracket, and then 7 out of the 30 is in that bracket. So that's what relative frequency means. And then just to add to that, so cumulative frequency is up until that point, how many are there? So cumulative frequency will say, okay, for the first one, it is 9 out of 30. But for the second one, how many do I have up until that point? It's 23 out of 30. And then the last one for cumulative, okay, so just cumulative relative frequency. The last one will always be 100, but it is basically the 23 plus the 7, so 30 out of 30. Okay, so that is just the difference between relative frequency and cumulative relative frequency. Very difficult to, is nearly in a categorical way to ask cumulative, unless they ask you what is the relative frequency of voting ANC or DA, then you would add the two. Okay, but otherwise very difficult to get a cumulative unless they need to tell you which ones are cumulative. Thanks, Christina, for the relative frequency in the chat. Okay. Does that answer the question?
Yes, perfect. Thank you.
Cool. Okay, so that nearly sums up what I thought was some of the difficult components of study unit 2. They love asking stem and leaf. They love asking the frequency distribution. So I just thought that is the important ones for study unit 2 that we need to focus on. So more over to you guys. Is it a bit more clearer on this so that we can next week go into study unit 3? Is there maybe other questions on study unit 2 that you want to ask? Okay, so that means you guys are happy up until now.
All good from me. Thank you.
Okay, great. So again, what I have added, Christina, did you want to
Yes, I
ask?
just wanted to know if they will go into detail about like cross tabulation. I know in the assignment they kind of stuck to the theory side of it.
Cross tabulation, yes, but more when it comes to probability.
Okay.
So when it comes to probability, we will definitely look at cross tabulation there. So that is more important in probability than in study unit 2.
Thank you.
Okay. So and I think that is also a nice question because it builds nearly onto one another, the study units, even though it doesn't seem like it. So they introduce some concepts in the earlier study units that they will only nearly look at a later point. So definitely cross tabulation, but we'll do that much more in detail in probability, because you will get something on cross tabulation in the probabilities study unit. Okay, and then I just took from that study guide or the extra study guide, I just included the summary as well, because I think it's also just nice to have everything together. It just makes it so much easier for you guys to also prepare for the exam. Okay, so I am stopping the recording. I will